Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our friends on the Spiritist page of Bournemouth Spiritist Association. Also to the people on the Paul Christian Spiritualist Church page. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got a wonderful evening lined up for you again. Very interesting talks with our Spiritist friends. It's all learning, it's all growing, it's all understanding and sharing our thoughts, our philosophies and our teachings. So I will, without a further ado, hand over to Fabricio to introduce the evening. Fabricio.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good evening, everybody. A warm welcome to those who are joining us via Facebook for tonight's talk by Vanessa Anseloni, who is joined with us online from the United States to talk to us on the topic sex, spirituality, and destiny. Thank you very much indeed, Vanessa. It's
Thank
an honor
you.
for us and a pleasure to have you share your teaching with us tonight.
Thank you
For
so much.
those that don't know me, I'm Fabrício Assunção, coordinator of the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth. I'm very pleased that the Society is co-hosting this event with Paul Christian Spiritualist Church. This is one of the series of events resulting from the fraternal collaboration between our two organizations. Our warm thanks go to Lawrence Saville and our friends at the church in Poole. Let me tell you briefly about the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth. We formed the group about 6 years ago. Our purpose is to promote the Christian principle of Spiritism through the study and practice of Spiritist teaching as codified by the 19th century French educator Allan Kardec. We are a member of BUS, the British Union of Spiritist Societies. We are an open group. Anybody can join. Until the current lockdown, we had our meetings every week in Bournemouth. But at present, during lockdown, we study together online. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. to study the Gospel according to Spiritism. Also on Monday evenings, we join online to study the Spirit's book. All these books were compiled by Allan Kardec to teach us the Spiritist doctrine on how each of us can live better lives according to Christian principles. These online studies during lockdown can be accessed from any location, of course, and you are welcome to join wherever you live. If you'd like to know further information, please be in touch with me. I give big thank you to Vanessa for her talk on sex, spirituality, and destiny. She is to give us this evening. Vanessa Anseloni is neuroscientist and psychologist and the founder of the School of Emotion. She worked for 18 years at the University of Maryland. Fifth generation Spiritist and has an impressive record of leadership in the Spiritist movement. Dr. Anseloni is the founder and former president of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. She also founded and is the president of the Spiritist Society of Virginia and the Spiritist Group of Washington. Vanessa Anseloni is a Spiritist medium, fraternal counselor, and coordinates spiritual treatments and workshops in the US and the worldwide. Dr. Anseloni has been translating and coordinating a team of translators of Spiritist books, among them Brother of Other Lands and Good News. She also the co-author of the book The New Generation with Divaldo Franco and the editor-in-chief of the Spiritist magazine. Dr. Anseloni is the founder of Kardec Radio. Vanessa, we are indeed honored to have you sharing with us here online tonight, and we look forward very much to your talk.
Thank you so much, Fabricio. Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. And it's an honor for us to be here in this exchange. I love this word, exchange, because it sounds very progressive, to get together. And we thank the pandemic for this opportunity. I don't think we would be here doing this. Worry not for the pandemic. And it's a great opportunity for us to revisit many topics that pertain to our life. And when we talked first, Fabricio, the topic that came to mind was about sex. Though there is much taboo, still there is much taboo to talk about it, but there are so many questions. And we're talking about the source of life. So we would like to ask everybody to think. I'm going to put just the first slides as we go forward, and we can think about together this opportunity of understanding more about sex. When you think of sex, what do you think? You think about two people, you think about the act, you think about reproduction, we think about our identity. But is this what it is? Is this what it is? And it's a big question. And I want to invite everyone to join us in this thinking about what sex really is, because we didn't invent it. One thing is sure, you and I did not create sex. It was God. God created it. What for? What is it then? So these are questions that make us think. If God created it, why do we often get hurt by misusing it or abusing it or not knowing what it is? And is it restricted to our physical body only? The reports of the spirits of all times tell us that even in the spiritual realm, spirits have sex. They still will present themselves in the form of men and women, though they don't have the physical body. The ones connected to planets like ours, the Earth, they are in that form. So what happens then? What is it about sex that we need to adjust? And what happens if we don't? I would like to tell you a little story about a family that lived in Spain many years ago. It was in the 20th century, at the beginning of the 20th century. And this is a story told by the renowned Spiritist medium, Amalia Domingo Soler. She reported this case in one of her books named Hechos que Prueban. It's not in English yet, though coming about. Some of the cases are published in the Spiritist magazine, and you can find it easily just going to spiritistmagazine.org, the cases of 15 cases of previous lives. She says to us that there was a very interesting case of a family who lived together, and there was a boy, and this boy was the son of this woman who was from a very prominent life. They were very wealthy. They had lots of social status, social influence at the time. But since his preteen years, he made friends with this girl who was not any close to the same socioeconomic level. And they became good friends. And one day they fell in love with each other and they started dating. But the mother, particularly the mother, she was not happy about it. She said to her son, "You can date her for as long as I don't find you a true wife. But the day I do, somebody at our level, I will tell you that you have to forget about her and get married to some other woman." And he told his girlfriend about it. She wasn't hurt. Surprisingly, She understood about it, and she said, it's okay. I will always love you. I don't need to get married to you, to your body, to be with you. I know we are connected no matter what. And she kept being so connected with him, and they were still connected. He got married. They kept exchanging letters. He didn't cheat on his wife because of her. She respected him. He respected her. And at some point, the beauty of it all is that she sends him a letter. And she sends him a letter saying, I am on my last days. I would love to see you before I depart. And he came. He saw her. They talked to each other. And she died in his arms. He went back to his city. And surprisingly, his mother also died. Amália Domingo Soler, as a medium, she started asking questions. She understood that this story had some form of enigma. This mother only died after that girl. It's as if she was waiting for it to make sure that they would never be together. So then she turned to the spirit guides and asked, because she had this natural conversation with her spirit guide, and asked, what is on the behind the scenes so we understand the story? And the spirit guide said, you're right, Amalia. Only reincarnation will make us understand this. Actually, in the previous life, this man, he was the boy married to that girl whom he loved. They were husband and wife. That's why she felt so certain that they were made for each other. Not saying that all people who are married are made for each other. We're just saying that in their case, they were married in previous life. They loved each other, and they actually kept that love. But they had a daughter whom they loved, but she fell in love, well, let's say, with the wrong man for them, a musician who was of a different socioeconomic status. And the mother and the father of this girl said, no, you are not going to get married to him. Well, in their case, they went a little further. They not only prohibited, but they made sure that that man would never come close. They exiled him somewhere where he died. He wasn't happy at death. He was actually very upset. Came back in forms of spirit attachment. The girl died, forgave the parents, understanding them, but she couldn't take the pain of being far away from the one she loved. Well, both parents at some point discarnating their life. And in the spiritual realm, they are revisiting. That's the story that the spirit guide says, that they got together and the plan of reincarnation was such that in this life, that husband and wife who didn't allow their daughter to get married to whom she loved, they would reincarnate. But they would come in different socioeconomic status to experience the prejudices that they cherished. Plus, the man, the musician that they exiled, because of how he harassed them spiritually, he reincarnates as the mother of the man, the father. I know it's a little very complicated, but so the musician of a previous life who is exiled and died comes back as a woman, and she gives birth to the man of a previous life who exiled him. So her current son is the man who exiled him and didn't allow him to be with that man's daughter. The woman who was not accepted in this life is the wife of previous life. What does it tell us? Many things. We come back in the bodies of men and women, and it's beyond just forming a family, taking care of the family, materially speaking. It's about much more than that. So we would say that above all things, sex is about a creative force. It's about what we do with the power of creation in us. You and I are co-creators. There's no denying. You and I are co-creators, and what we do with that creative force will be held accountable for it. And we don't say this in a punishing way, but just because there is this law of action and reaction. Some people call it the law of karma, but it's about the cause and effect. It's the law of cause and effect. For everything that we do, there will be an effect. Even in the physical realm, it's the way it is. So if we think more deeply about it, we're going to ask ourselves, what is inside of us to co-create? Think about nature and this, what scientists say, there is this perfect flower, the flower that contains both the masculine and the feminine features, making it all perfect. We are at human level. We are evolving. We never regress. We always progress, spiritually speaking. And inside of us, we have both. And even Carl Gustav Jung says about it, we have the yin and yang, the animus and the anima, the masculine and the feminine in us. No matter if we are reborn in the body of a man or in the body of a woman, we have these features. So that's a question. Before we move forward, a question for you and I, because it's more than the intellect, it's about feeling it. Do you recognize in you the feminine and the masculine features? We are supposed to have both, though at different levels, not because of the physical body, but because of the acquisitions of many lives. So we would say the masculine, just to give us a few examples of what these features of the masculine or the animus, the yang inside of us: initiative, courage, objectivity. These are some determination, perseverance. These are all features of the masculine in us. And the feminine or the anima or the yin, intuition, capacity for love, spiritual wisdom, mediumship. It's all about the feminine. No wonder when we go back in history, since ancient times, we're going to see, for example, the features of mediumship blooming so much more easily in women than in men. Not necessarily, because we see wonderful mediums who are in the body of a man, but these are coming through the features of the feminine in us. You can read more about it in books by Leon Denis. Leon Denis, and these books were published recently by the United States Spiritist Federation, and you can go to their website. They have a bookstore, and I know they have After Death, and then In the Invisible, where he talks about the feminine and mediumship, which is so beautiful. Talking about it, if we have a reference, we have in Christ a reference of this beautiful balance. The masculine in Christ in so many features, in his courage, in his perseverance, determination, or as we see when he expelled the merchants from the temple, as we read in John 2nd, 13:25, we're going to see that beautiful side of the Christ, Jesus showing to us that masculine in us. But uniquely, he also presented to us this beautiful anima. Like when he said in Luke 18, 15, 17, it's like welcoming the children. And if we contextualize the greatness of it all, nowadays we appreciate children, though many people not so much, because we are praying that the schools open back and send them to schools because we have more to do, right? Now imagine at Christ's time when children were not very much appreciated. There weren't schools like there are nowadays, or daycares or anything, and they were often put aside. And Jesus, in spite of it all, he teaches us a lesson, this lesson of being all embracing, welcoming, and the deepest understanding of the little ones. So that is the feminine in him. When he talks about being compassionate and he shows his compassion, it's the feminine inside of him. He shows a beautiful balance, like a perfect flower, of this animus and the anima. Beautiful. So beautiful that to date we would probably crucify him again for being so perfect that we cannot even believe it's possible. But in this beautiful connection of the animus and anima, we have a proposal for ourselves to balance the masculine, the feminine within, and to organize this expression of our creative force. To talk more and more about it, I'd like to remind us that we have been doing this. It's what we call the evolution of our sexual instinct for millennia, millions, billions of years. In the book Evolution into Worlds, already in English, and you can find it in the FEB Publisher, febpublisher.org website or amazon.com. You can find the book Evolution into Worlds by André Luiz through Chico Xavier, explaining to us about how we evolved since the day we were created by God, which was not at human level. And in particularly chapter 18, it says to us that on earth, we have been evolving in this creative force and our gravitation to one another, what we call the sexual instinct, since the plant kingdom. He talks about the hermaphrodite reproduction, and you can see it in hermaphrodite plants when they can do it all by themselves. And later on, the evolution as we see asexual reproduction in the amoeba, for example, and later sexual reproduction in animals and in humans. And he explains it in great depth for us to see how carefully we were exercising ourselves in this divine push to co-create. And it's not about the reproduction of the physical body alone. It's much more than that. To give us just a glimpse of where we want to end up, I just want to mention to you this book, Sex and Destiny, by the spirit doctor André Luiz, who through the Brazilian medium, Chico Xavier, gives us a beautiful account, a two family drama and the two lives, and how we're always being helped in balancing this creative force in us. As André Luiz says, sex and destiny, love and conscience, liberty and commitment, guilt and rescue. Home and reincarnation are the themes of this book, Born in Daily Life. And another preface of this book by the Spirit Emmanuel shares with us something that is quite food for thought. Love and sex imprint natural responsibilities in their consequences, and nobody hurts others. Affective treasures without painful reparations. Before we talk about destiny, we want to welcome you to a few answers to questions that you may have. And of course, if you have other questions, feel free to share them. And if the hosts allow, Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Fabricio, we can always talk about it and address them. But I want to bring you to this book just to tease you. I'm not going to tell you the story, just a few glimpses. So you can, it's a good summer book. Yeah, a good summer read. It begins by talking about this woman who is a deathbed and the good spirits who are coming to help her out, including her discarnated father. And she doesn't know that while she's a deathbed, her husband is having an affair with the very girl who is in the red dress, who is his secretary. And she's half his age. So you can almost have a feeling about where the book is going to go. And she belongs from another family, a family that has another girl, and that's her sister. Not only she's having an affair with the boss, but she's having an affair with the very son of her boss, who is her sister's fiancé. You see how the drama is a super drama? The day Hollywood knows of this book, it's going to be a super movie because it's drama like we've never seen in our lives. At some point, the story doesn't end up very well. And one of the sisters is caught in an accident, is in a coma. And then we're going to see how the spirit guides coordinate the readjustment of the two families. From there on, we're going to travel with André Luiz to locations in the spiritual realm where they have institutes to help people who are sexually imbalanced, and sometimes for several lives, for millennia. There they have meetings, they have courses, they have therapeutic educational meetings. And at the end of the book, you're going to learn about the power of reincarnation as means for true reparation. I'm just giving you teasers about this book, Sex and Destiny, that can be truly liberating in much of the taboos inside of us and in the deeper understanding of ourselves and the creative forces in us. For now, I want to march with you together through 7 answers to balance our creative force, because much of the way we mismanage our creative force, sex, is because we don't understand much of it. And I think Spiritism brings to us tools, resources that can be very illuminating and shed a lot of light in areas that are still fuzzy for us. So one question that people often ask is, what is sex? And we've come to know that sex, in the light of Spiritism, is the sum of the feminine and the masculine qualities that characterize the mind of the spirit. And this is in a book already available, Action and Reaction, by André Luiz as well, through Chico Xavier. It says to us that sex actually is the sum of these masculine, feminine qualities in us. So hopefully this will make us understand more about ourselves. It's nothing to do with pleasure seeking or reproductive needs for survival of our species. It's mostly about the potential of the divine being in us in acquiring all these virtues, all these qualities that will be exchanged with one another because we are under the law of society. That being said, we're going to identify this force of love both in the attraction of the stars, when the astronomers observe that there are these beautiful power magnetic forces that keep us where we are. And the good spirits, through André Luiz, explain it's this force of love. And then even in the subatomic communion, the minute particles and why they gather together and operate in such a way. So now we're redefining sex. It's much more than the pleasure-seeking type of definition. Another question many people ask, and you can find the answer in the question in the Spirit's book, question 200 by Allan Kardec. Do spirits have gender? And the answer is phenomenal. Not as you understand it. Gender, in your sense, depends on the body's organization. Love and sympathy do exist among spirits, but they are founded on similarity of feelings and attitudes. So today, you and I are probably being invited to this revolution of our definitions, right? If for us, it's dependent. I know that nowadays, because of our human rights, we're redefining, even in science, the way we use the word gender and sex. Sex being restricted to the physical body's organization, man and woman, female, male, and gender to what the person feels. So it's much beyond it. But here, in the technical terms of Spiritism, we're talking about something even beyond that. It's about the mind of the spirit, this creative force inside of us, and how we are expressing this creative force in our relationships with ourselves, with the world. Another question that many people ask is, can a spirit animate the body of a man and then the body of a woman in another? Can we come as a woman in this life, a man in another? Of course, for those who believe in reincarnation, but I would open a parenthesis here. At the University of Virginia, we have had extensive scientific publications to vouch for the fact that reincarnation is scientific. Reincarnation exists. There are several papers that were peer-reviewed by the Department of Psychiatry since Dr. Ian Stevenson, and later, nowadays, by Dr. Jim Tucker, that continue this research and show to us that it's a phenomenon of life. Though scientists don't know what to do with it, they know it's a phenomenon in itself. It exists. We can go from one life to the next in different bodies, and we have this diathenatic elements, as they coin the term in science, meaning elements that cross over death and show up in the next body. Several books that they published by Dr. Ian Stevenson, Jim Tucker, and even Carol Bowman show to us this experiences here and there. Kardec received the following answer to his question. Yes, the same spirits can animate men and women. So in this life, I am in the body of a woman. I am named Vanessa Anseloni, but in a previous life, who knows? I animated the body of a man. I don't know. Or in many lives ago, and I was named some other name, but I retain the elements of my experiences, boosting the feminine and the masculine in us, and the feminine and the masculine in the true sense of analytical psychoanalysis by Carl Gustav Jung, when we understand about the potentialities of the masculine and the feminine in us. Another question that we ask often, I want to go through the 7 questions so we stop a little bit and can talk more about the overall aspects of this understanding of sex, its creative force, its physiology, its dynamics. Do spirits prefer to be incarnated as men or women? And that's a big question. Kardec was such a visionary when he asked this question. It's in the Spirit's book, and it's question and answer 202. The answer: spirits are indifferent about matter. Decisions about sex, gender are based on trials a spirit must undergo. Okay, just that answer clarifies so many things. When we are in the spiritual realm, we may not care much. That's why he calls spirits. But when we need to reincarnate, we reincarnate in the body of men and women for specific purposes. And we're not talking about sexual orientation here. It's not about that. It's about features. For example, if I am in the body of a woman, certainly one of the things that I know is that I have the potential to be a mother. That's a main thing. If I am born in the body of a woman, I may potentially be a mother. And if I can, should I step forward? And often, this is one of the expectations that we fulfill that line. Not for all, but for majority of us. And then when you are born in the body of a man, you can also co-create, but to co-create, you certainly need the partnership of a woman. Or nowadays, thank God, we have IVF, and then several couples, I have several friends who can have same-sex partners, and they can co-create as well, even using their own cells to co-create and make a family. But that's a decision as well that both men and women have, but in completely different ways in the sense of how they approach life. And we have neuroscience telling us about the ways we use our brain differently as women and men, the masculine, the feminine. But nowadays, we're being asked to revisit much more deeply than the physical body's organization. When we talk about family, raising children, who is supposed to be, I was talking to a friend today, who is supposed to be the head of the family? The person, the man, the woman, or the person who puts more money on the table? Who is supposed to give the cards? And these are questions that are now up in the air for so many of us on earth. It's not as established as it used to be generations ago. We're in a beautiful moment where we're going deeper beyond the physical body. When we have same-sex partners, who is supposed to raise the kids? And I have beautiful friends, And they say, oh, because I have to work, the other one is in greater charge of these aspects. But when I come home, I take care of some other aspects. So beautiful to see how we're redefining and going much deeper within ourselves to understand the reasons why we are reincarnated in this life to progress through the masculine and the feminine features in us. 5, do I plan it before my reincarnation if I am going to be in this way or that way? If I will be in this family, that family, if I will be in with these parents or other parents, because many people are estranged to their parents and they have a hard time believing that they chose to be in that family. In a book that I give you as a reference, it's a beautiful description about many cases, but especially one of the planning of the reincarnation, in which Spirit Dr. Andrea Lewis explains to us that when we plan a reincarnation, our own mental mode of all we have collected will play a factor in deciding for the body that we're going to need to progress through that life and the family that we're going to be connected to. They say that the spirit architects will be using our own mental elements to make an agreement with the parents. Often before everybody reincarnates, reminding the parents during the reincarnation before conception, and using the parents' genetics according to the magnets of the mental modes of the spirit. And thus, the mental mode of the mother who is gestating is very, very impacting as well. Some people, funny enough, they say, Vanessa, I think I was born a girl because my mom ate watermelon. It's funny to say it, but some people believe in certain things. And I say, I'm not going to dismiss this because there's no research to deny it. And scientifically, we cannot deny anything until we see a proof. But I would say for your progress. It's not a game. Nowadays, there are many people, celebrities, who can even choose the sex of the child. And people ask us, is this right? The answer would be, if God is allowing us to make that choice, we're allowed to make a choice. The question is, should we do it? Because we are influencing somebody else's reincarnation. Our children are not our dolls. They are not here to decor our lives. So we really need to plan parenthood much more wisely, and I would say plan it with spirituality. From this perspective, we need to think about when we want to get pregnant, pray. I remember I've never tried to conceive before my daughter was conceived. And I remember my husband and I, the day in 2012, when we decided to step forward. And I remember that moment because at that very moment, we prayed, we got home. It was December 12th, 2012. It was nothing to do with the number. It was just because it was a special day for us. And then we sat down and said, well, I think we should try it. And then we prayed. we prayed and then we asked God if God thought that we were supposed to welcome a baby, we would be creating no obstacle. And then, of course, a month later, we got to know we were pregnant. I was pregnant, and Virginia is here. She's almost 7 years old. So I would say and recommend to everybody, it's good if we can consciously plan it out, be fully aware, and prepare ourselves for parenting is truly a way to use our co-creative force, not only for the creation of a new body, but for co-creating with God the molding of this mind that comes from many lives and is now in our family, the responsibility. It's funny because I think we take courses in so many things. To be a doctor, we study so many years. To be a therapist, to be anything. But the most important mission in life, which is to co-create with God and form a family, we don't spend much time. And that's worrisome. And I would say, as we are here stopped and thinking about our co-creative force, how about if we voluntarily channel our energy to really co-create with God in wisdom, taking courses, reading more, preparing ourselves more, meditating more, praying more regarding our parenting mission. This is just a parenthesis for us. And to exemplify how this is so beyond the Spiritist league, in the book by Dr. Jan Stevenson, Children Who Remember Previous Lives, he mentions about the concept of gender identity confusion or gender dysphoria, when, as Kardec shared with us, we may not care about the physical body that we're going to have when we're in the spirit realm, but when we reincarnate, it matters if we come in the body of men and women, also for the purposes of procreation and being a mother, being a father, and the roles we're going to have in life. Dr. Jan Stevenson, talks about a girl from India named Rani Saxena. And she, in a previous life, she said that she was a lawyer. And they confirmed it. They researched on her case and saw that her memories were of this man who was a lawyer. And he was not only a good lawyer, and it's funny to say because, we blame so much the lawyers for things that they do not fulfill when we want them to fulfill. But he as a man in a previous life was not very respectful to women. He used women like sex object. And then she said, Rani Saxena, in this life, she said, I decided to be reborn in the body of a woman to learn to respect women. And also to learn to be a mother of 2 children. And she accepted it. She grew up since her childhood, and they follow her case throughout the decades to see that memory of a previous life not only was true, but she also understood the reasons why she was reborn in that body and the roles she had to fulfill according to that possibility. Showing to us that much more than what we've been doing with sex is about being a co-creator, sculpting ourselves, as Mentor Joseph says, like Michelangelo and his creations. We are our own Michelangelo. We are the own sculptors of ourselves. So who do you want to be in terms of yourself as spirit? Because in this life, what we do with our creative force is going to be defining for the sculpting of our own selves. Her belief helped her make a life that was harmonious and peaceful for her. And this is the cover of the book that I mentioned to you. 2 more questions before we stop, answer to your questions, and come with the conclusion about how sex leads us to our destiny and how spirituality can redefine it all. What are the consequences of an unbalanced use of my sexuality? In the Spiritist books, we get to know that in our physical body, the gateway of life is the pineal gland. And I will go straight to this point here that talks about how we can attune with higher forces and through the pineal gland balance ourselves. The good spirits through Andrea Lewis share with us that this pineal gland releases what we call psyche hormones. And these psyche hormones will play a role in such a way that what happens in our minds is going to trigger these psyche hormones in our pineal gland and shower all of our endocrine system with such hormones, meaning everything begins in the mind. Everything. When people who are sexually addicted tell me, Vanessa, I can't stop it. I know. It has become a conditioning. But we need to go back one step and do what we call mental editing. Like a computer, you have a program and you do coding. We can decode and recode our own mind to trigger new sensations in our bodies. You are the master of your body. Your body is asking for what you have coded it into. Now we have to work hard, of course, with professional help, to go through this recoding, reprogramming of the mind that will release new psyche hormones that will tell the physical body what to want next. And that counts for chocolate too. For chocolate too, when people are addicted to chocolate, and I say, we need to give a new coding. So our psyche hormones that are triggering all of our endocrine system in the physical body, they modify what they are asking for the body, and the body will in return respond with greater ease, with balance. I need to open another parenthesis. Mentor Joseph, the spirit guide, always tells us, now with the boom of the pandemic, we see greater numbers of people seeking pornography. And that's sad, because many people think that by watching videos and seeing pictures are harmless. But actually, in spirituality, it's as if we are becoming vampires, sucking the energies of those people. They may not be in front of us, but we're connected to them mind to mind, like a Wi-Fi, and sucking their vitality, but we're not alone. In return, when we're watching pornography, we are in our turn, wherever we are, not alone. The types of spirits that are connected to us during those hours are not happy spirits. They are what we call in Spiritism vampire spirits. They are sucking our vitality. And the consequences can be dramatic, and that's what we're going to see next. In the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit Dr. André Luiz through Chico Xavier, we learn that when we misuse our sexuality, we will be reborn with inhibitions. Those who abuse the gifts of beauty, for example, and they may be reborn. These are the words of Dr. André Luiz. Eczema, skin cancer, thyroid dysfunction, and the dysfunction of genital organs. And these are just to summarize. We could go deeper. I could give you more and more elements in that regard, but this is just to tease us. If you go to the book, you'll see more of this. And even in the book Evolution into Worlds, these are just teasers for us. To wrap it up, we would say, to give the good news. Is there a way out? Yes. If you do spiritual treatments, these obsession meetings, it's what we call spirit release therapy in England, and fraternal assistance, we would say a good therapist would give us solutions to redefine the way we are dealing with our sexuality, dealing with this creative force inside of us. To wrap it up, since we have acquired so many elements, what is the ultimate goal of sex? If you say pleasure, you know the answer is beyond that. But don't feel guilty if you feel pleasure, because God created it, not you, not me. Well, what can we do? We need to learn how to use it. But God created the whole mechanism for us, and there's a purpose, but we need to learn how to tame our passions. And the answer is life, creation, and sex are part of the same complex. You and I are being invited to co-create with God, the source of life. And in that regard, we have no choice but to learn how to use this creative force to the benefit of everyone. It can no longer be used for selfish purposes, because that's going to be harmful. It can no longer be used for ego-centered purposes, but to true exchange in love, the love of life. And that's why talking about love, creating bonds, in any regard to sex, think before acting, for the word generate bonds for the spirit. Meaning, when we talk about sex, we're talking about fulfilling the law of love, which begins in instincts and evolves through sensations to actually feelings. So let us use this creative force to blossom in its perfection, accepting the creative force inside of us, which is sex, and multiplying it with all the resources we have at hand. Like the Christ, he didn't have physical children procreating physically, but he was certainly the model for us in terms of how to use best this creative force of life. And it's all about love. I'd like to stop here thanking our friends and Fabrizio, the Spirit Society of Bournemouth, for bridging it up with the Spiritualist Church and the beauty of this connection with you. And we're open for questions and comments.
Vanessa, absolutely transfixed, absolutely wonderful. One of the, I am always very mindful, I am not celebrating the reason why we are all linking up in this way by any means. However, we are finding at this time, we're having really adult discussions. And when I say that, I mean, we're approaching things now a lot differently. We used to be a bit soft and fluffy, shall I say, you know, oh, don't talk about that, oh, don't say that, oh, no, you don't go there. but actually now we're having these grown-up conversations and grown-up teachings. Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, Vanessa, I could stay here all night long. I could go on and on and on for hours and hours, but we have got a few questions that I would like to read from people posting those questions on Facebook.
Sure.
So we have got about 4 or 5. I don't know if you're going to have time to answer them all, but we can have a go. So first question I have here is from Eddie. He said, dolphins are more spiritually advanced than humans, and they are the one of few species like humans that have sex for pleasure. Does the pleasure of sex feed our spirit?
Okay. Thank you, Eddie, for asking this question. And I would like to mention the book Evolution into Worlds again, because there is a question about which animals are the closest to humans in their evolution. And actually, Andrea Luiz replies saying that dolphins is one of them. But besides that point, let's talk about pleasure, the pleasure of sex. Again, we all know we didn't create it. As a neuroscientist myself, when we study sex in the brain, it's triggered through pathways. You didn't create it. I didn't invent it either. So it's something that is in nature. We can't deny it and we cannot fight against it. But how do we embrace this pleasure in a way that can feed ourselves as spirit? I would say it certainly feeds us. It does. You know it, how you feel, especially if it's something that comes out of love. It feeds us if it comes out of love. But we're going to say, how do we coach ourselves to learn how to use this mechanism that is inevitable? Sex, pleasure driven by sex. How do we do it? I think it's going to take many experiences and reincarnations for us to get there, because it's a lot about mind over matter. And I'm going to say something here that some people say, oh, Vanessa, if you say this, I'm not going to be able to do anything. I say, before you have sex, you pray. If you say, but I can't. And then I'm not going to have sex if I pray. And I say, but you pray, of course, you're not going to pray kneeling down, etc. But inside of you, you just want to feel that you are protected by God and that there is true unity between you and the person. And that when you actually have that exchange, it's an exchange of quantum energy. We're talking about vitality that is exchanged. And science shows to us that at that moment, our pleasure-seeking neural pathway is being triggered. How can we transform it to feed us? The ideal is to sublimate it in this unity with somebody else. That's one thing if we are in a relationship. For those who are in no relationship, there's always that way of doing what Chico Xavier and Divaldo Franco said it in a meeting. We have the tape, and he is the one who told us, for people who want to sublimate it to another level, you talk to the cells of your genital organs, and you ask that they bring this energy to your brain to revitalize yourself and to use it in other manners. I'm just sharing these 2 options here. I know we could discuss all night long.
Thanks, Vanessa. Another question is come from Sue, and she says, do we reincarnate into different bodies on the wide range of spectrum of gender in order to experience life and the lessons and rebalance aspect of ourselves which need healing?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. As far as I understand the question, yes, we do. And we talked about the case of Reni Saxena, and this is just one case, but we do.
Another question from Eddie. You assume incarnation are sequential. Is it possible that they could be simultaneously? And could our guides be other incarnation of ourselves? I.e., when we sleep, could we be a guide for a different incarnation?
Eddie, thank you for asking this question. In Spiritism, as a science, Kardec says, we have certain principles. And I would say we need to redefine things. Words matter. So I would say the first part of the Spirit's book will give us common ground. And I would say, based on what we understand from that perspective, we cannot reincarnate simultaneously. But I would say, if I could rephrase what you asked, I would say time is relative. And certainly what we feel about time, it's not linear, for sure. So the other day I was watching again with my husband and my daughter. It was her first time she was watching the movie Back to the Future. And it's so interesting because there it talks about, how something there affects here and simultaneously it's changing here and affects there. But in Spiritism, we understand that we will be progressing from one experience to the next during sleep. During sleep, we are one individual. We're not split in many. We're one individual connected fully to that body. It's not possible, as we understand, to connect one spirit to many bodies simultaneously.
Thank you. Lawrence, all the questions gone up. I can't actually get them. Can you see them on there? Because they have been writing so many questions and I missed them all. You're on mute, Lawrence.
We're going to have to get a new secretary for next week, Fabricio. So there's a lovely question here again from Sue. Do you feel that we shall eventually become a more androgynous society as the world changes and society changes? Because we are on the planet of duality, and the more we recognize that the opposites are in all as part of the wholeness that we truly are.
Thank you, Sue. Remember when we talked about the anima and the animus? I think that's what we're talking about. It's like we're talking about becoming whole, about becoming. Remember, we will still need each other. We'll still have affection and love for one another, but our needs will be sublimated as we expand in our capabilities of the feminine and the masculine inside of all of us, irrespective of the physical body structure.
Very good. And from Claudio, if being co-creators, parents of even relationships do not seem to be on our path, how can we channel sexual energy in a healthy way?
Claudio Henrique, what a big question. It's a big question. How can we channel? I would say, I'll give you a reference because in our brains, we have mirror neurons. We need a model to follow through. I would say choose a model. We have chosen the Christ because you see, in that life, as far as we know, though people claim this and that, but we know that Jesus Christ has not had children of his own. But what he did was a way to sublimate that sexual energy and channel in healing for people, in caring for people who were in need, who were sick, etc. So I would say, like we mentioned, we can talk to our body, to the cells of our body, because we're the master and commanders of our body, and say, we're going to use all this energy, to help, to care. As a mother, I tell you, the best experience I've ever had in my life was to be a mother. Till then, I didn't know what it is to sacrifice 24 hours a day. Even when you go to sleep, they wake up in the middle of the night, there is no day, no time. You are there and you have to be there, and they need this, they need that. And then you realize that all the energy that you use for 10,000 things, now you can channel to care for this other life. And if it's not for the life that is of your child, like Mary Magdalene, she didn't have children of her own, but she started caring for the sick. And that's a way to use our sexual energy very healthfully.
Excellent. No more questions at the moment. Bob, can you put your question on the church Facebook page, please? Because apparently Fabricio has lost the notes.
That is
What?
because they have asked so many questions, and then it goes up and up and up. So I can't actually keep up with all the questions. So we do need a secretary, Lawrence, next time.
Just remind us, Fabricio, which bank do you work for?
Not to mention that. So when we wait for Bob's question, then I'd like to make some announcements. If you like to hear Vanessa again, so Vanessa, she's going to be with us in London in 2021 for the third British Spiritist Congress. And the dates are on the 16th and 17th of May in London in 2021. So come along. It's a beautiful congress. It's our third British Spiritist Congress held by our FABUS, our British Association for Spiritist Society. And also our next talk on Spiritist Night is going to be on the 26th of June. And the topic is going to be inner transformation, a spiritual and psychological understanding with Susanna. And I think that's it for all the announcements. I'm not sure if Bob is popping his question on here.
No, he hasn't, but Elsa is just... Oh, hold on. Yes, he has.
Oh, here you go.
So let's stop doing that. That's better. Is it against Spiritist principles or not for a person with gender dysphoria in this life to undergo an SRC change operation? I think that's meant to be a sex change operation.
Yes. Thank you, Bob. This is a very important question. I would say here, this is something we need to raise awareness, to be embracing of people's needs. As a psychologist, I understand that we can no longer deny the needs of each and every person. In Spiritism, there's no prohibition of anything. There's just the understanding of the mechanisms of life, because it's science. You can't do this, you shouldn't do that. There's just like, you do this, the consequences. God is so loving. And I'm going to share with you something that I was reading the other day. A question that was asked to our dear Spirit Emmanuel, the spirit mentor of the medium, Chico Xavier, in Brazil, when he was incarnated. They asked him, can the atonements and the trials of life be, is there inflexibility on God's law regarding the things we need to undergo? And the answer is, if in human laws we have the decrease of somebody's sentence, if there is in human law what we call probation, etc. Why would God, who is all loving, not give us opportunities to go through our life and decrease our, needs to experience this and that and the other? So I would say, based on that, we would say, what is important is what you do with your life. Whether you are in the body of a man or a woman, what you do. If you love yourself, if you love the people you're connected to, that's what matters. And we're talking about this greater sense of love. It's beyond just the physical and how we feel, but it's what we do with it. So we would say, if you feel like you need to go through the process, you do it to expand your capabilities of loving yourself and everyone in your life.
Wow, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think we're about on time, are we, Fabricio?
Yeah, we have gone above the time a little bit. We have one more question, and then I think we can close the event. There is a question from Leonardo. He says, wouldn't be a good way to balance the creative energy apart from sublimation in relationships where love and respect are the base?
I'll say, first I want to say hi. Hello, Leo. I remember him when I last came to the United Kingdom. And okay, so wouldn't be a good way to balance the creative energy apart from sublimation relationships where love and respect are the base? If I understand your question well, I would say there are many ways. And if we have one major reference for us is, you said the words, love and respect. And that summarizes it all. But I agree with you. There are so many ways to express this love. But the love that is undenying, beneficial to everyone is the one that we're talking about. We're not talking about this selfish love, ego-centered love. We're talking about this expanding love that is so embracing that we even forget about ourselves. So in that regard, we can certainly balance ourselves in our creative energies. And as we have mentioned here before, everything begins in the mind. So if we learn how to tame the horse of our minds daily by visualizing, I want to wrap up, Fabrizio and Mr. Lawrence, by mentioning this beautiful statement by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier in the book Thought and Life. By the way, it's published by the British Union of Spiritist Society. I'm a big fan of that book, and I would recommend to everybody. Chapter 10, there's this beautiful quote that if we want to really boost balance inside of us, we need to do 4 things, which is all in one. Seek the good, feel the good, visualize the good, and mold the good with all the resources we have at hand. And I think that's the movement of love and respect.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you very much. That was amazing. So just to correct a mistake that I made, and then I will pass it over to Lawrence for the closure prayer. The dates for the Congress is the 15th and 16th of May. I have got so many dates on my book here, and I've got mistake by. So the third British Congress is on the 15th and 16th of May 2021, and Vanessa will be one of our speakers in London next year. Thank you very much, Vanessa. So now I ask Lawrence to close the event with a prayer. Is that okay, Lawrence?
That's fine, Fabricio. Firstly, very briefly, Vanessa, absolutely awesome. Your encyclopedic knowledge of being able to pull out all these different texts, amazing. I'm stunned. absolutely stunned. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Washington. So thank you, my darling. Wonderful.
Thank you so
So,
much.
pleasure. If we could all just still our minds just for this moment and link in with that God of our own understanding. And we give thanks for this evening, for this exchange of thoughts and ideas, for this time with Spirit, Spirit within, and those who stand by us, ready to help and assist all of us in our own endeavours. We ask a blessing on all the factors that brought together this evening. We ask a blessing on everyone here who is watching and who will watch. But most of all, we ask for that healing balm to be given to all, to help us to learn how to bring about peace and health to this world. For we know it is by our hand, under the guidance of the love and the greatness of Spirit, that will effect true change. Amen.
Amen.
What a joy.
Right, nobody knows what to say now, do we? We're all sat here going, looking at each other going, what do we do? I think it's fair to say goodnight to everybody. Vanessa, again, I can't express my gratitude enough. Absolutely wonderful. Anybody wondering, that strange noise is Vanessa's neighbour's lawn being mowed. So I hope it looks absolutely beautiful when you go out.
Me too.
Fabricio, thank you so much for organising these events and bringing so many wonderful people to us. It's so much appreciated. Everybody watching live tonight, thank you so much for your attendance. Anybody watching on catch up, welcome, and thank you for searching out this little resource. So I leave the evening now to say goodnight from each and every one of us.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.